Hey, it's Lisa.
And Dan.
And thanks for joining us here at Bring Up the House Music.
For episode 2.
Bring up the house music. Bring up the house music. Yeah, yeah. Bring up the house music. Bring up the house music. Yeah, yeah.
Bring Up the House Music, a podcast exploring all things music and real estate.
Okay, so this is Bring Up the House Music. This is our first real official episode, and we want to thank Nick Cucci for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. You're the first person who came to mind because this podcast is all about music and real estate, and those are two things that you master. In my
I don't know
mind.
about that.
In my mind.
But I enjoy them.
Yes, and you enjoy them, so we figured we would come and talk to you.
All right, cool.
Thank you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I have the music side of things. Been a musician since I was a kid and love to play. I call it, at this point in my life, married and I have a kid, so I don't get to play as much as I would like to. But I think for any musician, you have this need to feed the beast, if you will, where you have to always keep playing in some form. And if you don't, you start to get this kind of pang every now and then where it's just like, all right, I just have to get out there and do a little something just to keep it moving for yourself. Somebody asked me the other day, like, are you still going to shows? And I was like, oh no. No,
what are those?
No, not at all. I have a 2-month-old son. Like he's the show right
Yeah,
now.
he's the star.
And then as far as real estate is concerned, I caught the bug about 3 years ago now. So about 3 years ago, I was I've had a full-time job for about 5 years now, and the only reason I really took it was so that I could get a mortgage. I was a freelance video producer and was having a great time with that until I was like, oh, let's go buy a house. And they were like, well, cool, show us everything on paper. And I was like, wait a minute, guys.
What's that?
So I bought a house, and I started to really look into where my future was taking me. And while working as a video producer is a great gig, it's one of those gigs where the second you stop, the money stops.
Mm-hmm.
And I never really considered passive income until I really started to consider that. And I think one of the stories that kind of led me to go into real estate was from an older producer that I was working with. I was doing a larger show. And after one of the heavy nights of working, the producer and I went out and had a drink, and she said to me, "So is this something you're going to do forever?" And I said, "I think so. Yeah, it seems to be a good gig." And she said, "Well, it never stops."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Well, right." And she's like, "No, like it never stops. Like after this gig, I'm going to go to the next gig, and if I don't have work after that, I don't get paid. Like it'll just never stop. Like as long as you recognize that, it's fine."
Yeah.
And that was about 2 years before I bought my house and then my first investment property. And I think it was just brewing from there. Just the general idea that, like, okay, there's so many jobs that you can have in this world, and it's great if you love them, but you have to recognize that at some point you may want to stop. And when you go to sleep, how are you getting paid? And
Yeah.
if the answer is I'm not, like, it might be an issue.
Yeah, that was the light bulb, essentially. Showcase what the rest of your life could look like, and then you started to think a little bit differently.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So started to consider, what avenues I could go down, like what passive avenues could I potentially go down. And, as I started to research that a little bit, what I felt most comfortable with was real estate. And I think a lot of people get really comfortable with real estate because it's something you can see and touch, and it's something you can go and, the investing in stocks is a landscape where it's amorphous, and some people have a hard time kind of understanding the swings and how to ride it. But I can drive to a market and look at it and see the construction happening on a street and understand that there's, you know, a change coming to an area, and if there's a piece of real estate that looks and feels right there that's inside of my price point that I can invest in, I know I have a pretty sound investment for 7 to 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more tangible.
It is.
Absolutely. So in that 2-year span that it took you from, you know, the light bulb moment until you finally got into real estate, and, you know, me and you have talked real estate a lot in the past couple of years, what was the main motivational factor? What was the, you know, who turned you on to getting into real estate? What was
Like, I'm
the
not waiting
inspiration?
another minute.
So you know what I think it was. I read Rich, and I mean, so many people have this story. You know, Rich Dad Poor Dad kind of changed the game for them. I read it when I was 21 years old, and it definitely flipped the switch for me, but not enough. You know, it definitely flipped the switch where I was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense, but I didn't know how to apply it. And I think a lot of you know, first-time investors would say, as I said when I was 21, oh, I don't have any money, I can't get into real estate. I wish I had known then that, well, that's okay. You know, you can find a way to get in without money, and that's you know, if I could go back a bunch of years, I might, you know, talk to myself about that. But anyway, I reread Rich Dad Poor Dad. I guess at some point in 2014, and it just started to, you know, help me reignite that fire for like, all right, real estate's definitely a path that you should go down. And then I found Bigger Pockets as well, and you know, once I started listening to the Bigger Pockets podcast, and just that, I think constantly, it was like that constant reassurance of when you hear that weekly podcast of like, this is something you can do, this is something a lot of people are doing it. And you know what, I think there's something to be said when you have people saying to you straight up like, hey, I'm not that smart and I can get this done. There's something to that where you're just like, all right, this person is just bluntly saying like, you can go jump in and do it, or you get a confidence where you can jump in. So I think, you know, continually listening to that podcast made me curious. I started reading a bunch of books about it and started to, you know, look into other markets, and it was June 2016 that I eventually jumped in, and I jumped in with turnkeys. And for anybody who doesn't know what a turnkey is essentially it's a property that somebody else has purchased. They have rehabbed it completely. They have put tenants into place, and it is just turnkey, ready for you to, you know, purchase and hopefully cash flow for you.
And maybe mention where you did that. Was it in New Jersey or out of state?
So it was out of state, and the reason that I went out of state is because it was in Indianapolis, in Indiana. And there's a couple reasons that I went to that market. I went to that market, number one, because it's super affordable. The properties that I was buying, that I was jumping in at, were, you know, $75K, $80K, completely rehabbed, flipped, and they were cash flowing a couple $100s a door after expenses every month, which is, you know, for a first-time investor, was a win. And
I just think it's incredible that your first investment was out of state, right? You bought a couple, and you have someone else managing those.
Correct. Yeah.
It just blows my mind. Like, that's amazing. Like, how you went from like, oh, I'm thinking about it, to like, okay, out of state, let's get a couple properties, let's pick them up, let's, you know,
most
like,
people
I
are
just
gonna
think
wanna
most
have
people
something
are
down the street for the first
totally.
one, you
That's
know?
I'm super impressed by that.
Yeah, it's
you-
amazing.
You
know,
did your homework. So where did you pick that up?
There was a Bigger Pockets podcast,
Yeah.
and I forget which episode it was, but the investor who was on that show, he owned 56 houses free and clear in one town in Indiana, and it's north of Indianapolis. It's about 45 minutes south of Chicago, actually, so it's in northern Indianapolis. But his story was just so inspiring to me that at this point he lives in California. He flies in once a month to go to the tax sales. He buys it, and then he is FaceTiming with his contractors and his whole team to handle the properties after that. And the way that he does it is so impressive, where he and his wife both still work full-time at their 9-to-5 jobs. One salary pays the bills, the other salary is only for investment properties. And
Love that.
Wow, that's great.
Bridge.
think about the resolve that you have as a human being to have 56 houses free and clear and still be taking one salary and
Yeah.
just applying it.
Just
By the
having
time you
that.
have 10 houses free and clear, you're in a good spot.
You're in a great spot.
Yeah. So I mean, talk about the generational wealth that you are setting up, for your family and their families to come by doing that.
Yeah,
So,
they're not, getting into real estate, getting some passive income, and then flying away on vacation and, taking advantage of all this downtime that they could have. They're continuing with it, and they're using it for their future and their family's future, and
Reinvesting.
that's most people I don't think would do that. So I mean, it's really impressive.
And I was listening to a podcast today, and the guest that was on, I can't recall which podcast, and I can't recall her name, unfortunately, but her message was extremely sound, and it's actually something that I've just recently lived. It was, make sure, one of her biggest pieces of advice was keep your lifestyle in check. As you are, good for you if you're starting to cash flow a couple $1,000s a month, and then that turns into 5 figures a month. That's great. But if your lifestyle creeps along with that, it won't be a good thing. So you just really need to manage, your own lifestyle so that you can, later on down the road reap the rewards of your passive lifestyle.
And it's a super famous book. I'm sure you guys have read it. If not, you've heard of it. But Millionaire Next Door.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm
Quinn loves that.
finally reading this, and about halfway through, and that's pretty much the message: is to, as your income goes up, keep your lifestyle in check. Don't try to keep up with
The Joneses.
the Joneses and just where
Yeah.
you're living and the most common millionaires, you'd have no idea they are.
That's
So
right.
That's like Dave Ramsey. I just finished his book, Money. I can't remember the name of it. Money Matters or something. But his rule is live like no one else, so you can live like no one else. So
Yeah.
he says you got to be conservative on your budget now, so that later in life you can have that and you have it disposable for you. Disposable income. You have what you need for later,
Yeah.
so that you can live like nobody else
Mhm.
when you want to. But you have to be disciplined. Is his whole point.
And action is a big piece of that, and I'm super proud of what my wife Sharon and I just recently did, because we applied that. We just downsized. We moved to a house that's half the size of what we were living in, and once we moved in, we refinanced the house, and we refinanced so that our mortgage now, we're paying less than what we had paid in rentals at this point, and it's an awesome thing, because now we'll be able to take that additional saved capital and apply that to more investments and more investments. It's not the easiest thing sometimes, but it's okay, because you're looking towards the future.
Yeah.
And we did luck out because we love the neighborhood we moved into.
It's a great neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Speaking of, you had said, to go back a little bit, you got $100, $200 every month cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
So what is that range as an investor that you want to stay in that is, makes you comfortable enough to purchase a rental?
So from the books that I've read, the blogs that I've read, the podcasts that I've listened to, it seems like a very solid benchmark is $100 a door. I recently spoke to an investor who's fairly conservative, and what he looks at is for every $100,000 I spend, I want to be making $1,500 a month, which is that if you can find those numbers, that's very good. That's not easy to find, and a lot of times you're going to find that in riskier investments. But I think a benchmark that I've found to be not so hard to acquire is $100 a door.
Okay.
That's a good rule of thumb. And they always say, you have to remember as time goes on, you buy land and wait, not wait to buy land.
Mhm.
So if you wait long enough, the scales are going to start tipping. That $100 is going to start to go up as your equity gets, chunked down by
Yep.
your tenant paying for it.
100%.
So
Yeah.
it's a beautiful thing.
It is, yeah, and just right now we're still in acquisition phase, and we're still learning and figuring this business out, because it's, we started with the turnkeys, and then from the turnkeys went to a duplex that was also a turnkey, but the idea of more doors under one roof just really started to make sense. And then went from a duplex to a non-turnkey quad in Cincinnati. And the reason that we're going to Cincinnati, we like that market. I like the Midwest in general. I feel like I had gone to Cincinnati maybe about 5-6 years ago. I had passed through there, and I get a good vibe from the city.
Yeah.
So I was looking at these areas because they were great cash flow areas. They were areas that were landlord friendly, but also they're areas like I like going to Indianapolis. We take a trip. Try to take a trip every year, every 2 years, and we have a fantastic time there. And I haven't been to Cincinnati in 5 years, but we're taking a trip this month actually, where we're going to drive out to Cincinnati, go to their food festival, hang out, see the Over the Rhine district, the downtown area that's just been totally getting revitalized right now, and start to feel it out a bit more. But getting back to the point, sorry to digress. We're always constantly learning and trying to figure out how to get more doors in less purchases, which is the next step is going to be larger multifamily, which is what we're working towards now.
Yeah, and we're gonna have to definitely speak about that at length. Speaking of doors, I have to go open a door down the street for one of my clients, so I'm gonna have to exit the podcast, unfortunately. But Nick, I just want to thank you so much for sitting down with us today, and Lisa and Nick will continue this, and I can't wait to hear the rest of it. But much appreciated. You've been an inspiration to me.
Thank you. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me on.
I have a
and
couple more
chilling.
questions
I know.
for you.
We're happy to. So
our background, we met through music,
yep.
and quickly, we were both in two-piece bands at the time.
Yep.
I think I was in Boy Girl.
You
You
were
were in
Gay Guy, Straight Guy. Yep.
So there was an immediate kinship, and then you became.
Well, you didn't tell me. You didn't tell me you were in Boy Girl when we first met.
No, I don't think so.
You didn't, because I met you. You were in Plus Plus Minus, and
That's right.
and I knew you only in Plus Plus Minus. And it wasn't until like a couple years later that you
That
were
we
like,
discovered.
they were like, yeah, playing a band, boy/girl, and I was like, oh, you're like, yeah, it's two-piece. And I was like, oh man, I was like, so we're basically stealing your style, huh? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you're stepping on my toes, but I let you go for a little bit, and then I let you know years later that it's been stewing inside of
Yeah,
me.
no big deal.
Stole our vibe. But then we became good friends, and then the real estate, we call you our wild card, because we just never know what's going to come at you. So you've done a sale, 2 rentals, your home purchase of an investment property, then you ended up renting that out yourself, this purchase, and I think that's everything.
Everything that
That's
we
just you and I
that we have done.
And you've done a lot outside.
Yes. Yeah.
But,
it is.
But you're always doing something. I think you were in real estate before you realized you were in real estate.
It's true. You're right. So the I did a house hack before I knew it was called house hack.
Yeah.
And that was the first house that I ever bought. I bought in 2010. I bought at the end of 2010, and I flipped it. It was a 1960 or a late 50s ranch that needed a lot of love. It just needed a lot of aesthetic updating. And I did all of the updates. I moved into the smallest room and rented out the 2 larger rooms that covered the mortgage plus $160. So I was basically living for free at that point and making $160 a month, and was like, okay, this makes sense.
Yeah.
This is great.
Pulled this off.
Yeah. So that wasn't bad. Then I started to get a good amount of work in New York City, and wasn't able to really manage the property. And unfortunately, this is when I didn't really know what I was doing. It wasn't a good rental. Had I looked at it, if I looked at it now as an investment, I would pass. And one of the first X's on my list now is does it have a crawl space or a basement?
Yeah.
And if the answer is no, and it's on a slab, I pass right away.
Yeah.
And the reason there is that the old plumbing was all in the slab, and we had plumbing issues constantly.
Yeah.
You would consistently have plumbers over there. There was problems all of the time. The house fully needed to be replumbed, and it was not an investment that I wanted to make.
Right.
So that was an issue in that place. And since I wasn't around to really manage, I used a property management company. The property management company, I did not have a good experience with that property management company, unfortunately. So I ended up selling the property, and I sold the property, but did well when I sold it. So I made a couple bucks that I was able to use on my first home purchase, which was great.
It's awesome.
Yeah. What I do? I keep talking. I feel like I'm just rambling.
No, you're not rambling. It's all good information. I'm trying to think of what's a tip you would give someone, a first-time home buyer? Like, what's something that you learned that you said one thing already, the slab, but like, is there anything else that like for someone who's just like not even for investment purposes, just but for themselves? Like, what would you tell them?
For a first-time home buyer, what I would do, it really depends on, if you have a goal of real estate investing at some point, if that's something you're even considering, look into a multifamily.
Yeah.
Look into, if you're a single girl, a single guy, and you're looking to buy for the first time, buy a house that has 2 properties on it and live in the back house and rent out the front house, and you will be shocked at the amount of equity you can build up quickly. Because if you want to, you can essentially, quote unquote, pay rent and really snowball that mortgage, or you can live quite cheaply.
Yeah.
Because you have the people in your rental are paying the majority, or at least should be if you're buying right.
Right.
The majority of your note.
Yeah.
Your mortgage. Another tip would be, if there's an oil tank, depending on where you are, in the state of New Jersey, if there's an oil tank, get a large concession or walk away.
Yeah.
Because it will turn into, I would say 9 times out of 10, when you get the oil tank removed, and you eventually will have to get the oil tank removed, there will be a hole in the tank. You will have to deal with the EPA. It'll take you about 2 years to deal with everything, and it's going to take thousands of dollars to do so. So if you're okay with taking that on and the property's worth it, go for it.
Yeah.
But just know, like, you're walking into a headache.
Yeah.
And if I think another good tip is just do a sweep. Do an oil tank sweep.
Absolutely.
Spend the money. I think, what is it, $200 usually?
If
Somewhere
even,
around there.
And some companies even apply that towards, the soil, the testing, they'll apply that towards the removal. So,
Yeah.
You're just investing. I mean, I always tell people it's better to spend $500 and save yourself like a $25,000 headache.
That's right.
Which it could be if you have a really, really serious spill.
Yeah.
Or issue, it could cost that much to clean it up, and there's no longer grants from the DEP to do so.
And I got very lucky. I took mine out in 2010 or actually 2012, and I just caught the tail end of that.
Just made it.
And I think mine was small dollars in that game. I think mine was about $8,000 to get taken care of, and I got about 4 or 5 of that back.
Yeah.
Which was great.
Which is awesome.
What's
the next project in your home? You're always doing projects, and I have to commend your wife, Charlene. She's got a great eye. You both do. Amazing eye for, we could do this here and decorating, but what's the next project? You're always doing something.
And this is something, don't tell Char.
She's not going to hear this. She's got a 2-month-old.
Hopefully she's not listening to this, but every house that we buy is a value add play to me. Every single house.
Yeah.
So, we walked into this house that we just purchased. It's in a fantastic neighborhood. Mm-hmm. It has less than just under 1,300 square feet of finished space, and 3 bedrooms, 1 bath. So right away, we are finishing the basement. That has 8-foot ceilings in the basement, which is unheard of in this neighborhood.
Yeah.
And we are finishing that, which will add another 900 square feet of living space and make it fantastic. And then we're also adding, after that will be another bathroom. There's space in the master bedroom to add a bathroom, so we're going to add a nice bathroom in there. And then I have a landscaper coming by in about an hour
Soon.
because the front yard is a disaster.
Yeah.
We are on a hill, a pretty big hill, and I think we want to eventually completely redo it to do a tiered lawn, and we'll see. That'll be the last of the projects, but yeah, always trying to value add the space as much as possible. And we've already one of the big projects. As soon as we moved in, I opened up the wall in the kitchen to the living room, put a bar in there, took out the old clunky box lighting in the kitchen, and put some recessed lighting in.
Rough.
It was rough, and now it's already transformed the space completely, which is fantastic. So
yeah, it looks great.
always trying to
Paint.
keep it moving.
Paint makes a world of difference.
Paint makes a world of difference, and luckily that's Charlene's world. She knows what to look for.
Yeah.
And I'll suggest paints, and she'll usually just nicely say, no, that's all right.
Oh, I got this one. You take a break. Yeah.
Exactly.
So music. Gay guy, straight guy.
Yep.
Anything? What's going on with you guys? I know you were playing out a whole lot. You're kind of like taking a breath.
Yeah, just taking a breath, really. I mean, we're still, Bob's one of my best friends, and that band has been moving since 2011. So it's the longest band I've ever been in, and it's easy. It's easy. It's just I mean, you know what it is. It's two people, but with that, it's easy to do a few things. It's easy to get together and be moving, and it's easy to get bored. So I think we hit a space maybe about a year ago where it was just like we weren't really writing. Bob wanted to make some really heavy stuff. I wanted to make some electronic stuff, and it was like, hey man, let's just put this down for a little while. Look, we can come back to this at any point. We always have a good time playing together. So that'll be the deal. And at some point, we've already talked. I think we already booked a show for sometime in June in Asbury, like June or July in Asbury. We're going to play a couple shows this summer, but Bob's doing Shut Up right now, so he's got his heavy project where he gets to wail and just feed that beast. I've got an electronic project now called Mr. Marsh that I'm really enjoying, and that's actually, it's taken me to another creative space that I never really knew existed, which has been really cool. It is I put out a 5-song EP in January this year, and it's a story, and I didn't mean for it to be a cohesive story, but it became one, and I've been really excited at how it's coming together, because Mike Castaney, who I played in a band with for years in River City Extension, he has just become just a stellar producer. And he took these songs and he turned them into what they are. He really pulled out what could be in them, and I was just so shocked with the results that were able to come out from working with him. And I think that really inspired me to be like, all right, well, I wrote this short story that goes along with this. Let me bring in some other people. And I've since been working with a creative writer, a guy, Matt Bright, who has taken the story and he's taken it to new heights, which is amazing. And now we're looking for illustrators so that we can do just a short novel. Well, a short novel. It'll be a short illustrated story. So, but I think when all is said and done, it'll be around 70 to 80 pages with imagery, and just really pumped to have that, and to create that. And it's been a nice journey to figure that out,
I'm a huge fan of the mixed media. Like when you were talking about how it tells the story, I immediately thought like, well, where's the imagery of it?
Yeah. So
I think bringing that into it will be amazing. And you kind of did something different for yourself too on that in terms of writing. You did a lot of electronic, right? Like a lot.
Yeah, it was all electronic.
Yeah.
So it was I got been working with Native Instruments products for a couple years. Just messing around making beats, and I'd wanted to do. For a long time, I've wanted to do an electronic record, probably for about a little over 10 years. And I was like, yeah, it's something, I'll eventually do it. And that was one of my goals last year was, You need to make an electronic EP. You need to get it out into the world, and it went on iTunes December 30th. So
Nice.
just squeaked that one in there.
You made it though.
Yeah, and got it in.
So we can find it on iTunes?
It's anywhere you find music. It's on Apple.
We'll put a link
It's on
to
Apple
it.
Music. It's on Spotify. It's all there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
I need to check it out because I haven't heard it fully either.
Cool. Yeah, Mr. Marsh, and the EP's called The White Room.
The White
And
Room.
I can give a quick synopsis of the story if you want
Sure.
to hear. It's about a guy named John Marsh who's been living a fairly boring life for 9 years, and his friend invites him to his friend Simon, who happens to be the name of my son. He invites John to a party one night where he's going to do a drug called Duo, and he reluctantly agrees, goes, tries this drug, and it takes him on a trip where he enters the multiverse and is able to jump and almost surf into other versions of his soul.
Wow.
So, and he has this revelation that after that night he realizes that his soul is one of seemingly infinite versions that are all connected in some way, and I don't want to give away too much of the story, but he gets caught up in the multiverse and later on has to try to find a way back to his version of himself.
Super cool.
Yeah, it's been
Love it.
a fun story. So now I'm trying to understand now if it'll be the sort of thing where kind of keep the story going, or if it was just that was the story and just
One and done.
leave it be. Yeah, which I'm a big fan of the one and done. Like if they ever made The Big Lebowski 2, I'd be pretty
No.
mad.
I'd see it,
I
but
would-
I'd be
I'd
mad.
watch it, but I'd be mad about it.
Yeah.
Like I was mad when Matrix 2 came out. I was mad when Super Troopers 2 came out. Like just some things.
Don't
just
touch with a classic.
leave it
Just
alone.
Don't mess with it.
Just leave it alone. Like if Fight Club 2 came out, I'd break a window. I'd be so upset. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Some things are left.
yeah.
As
just
they are.
Just you did it once and it felt pretty good. Don't try to expand it. But
Or you could do a multiverse version of the album. Since
So-
you're talking about a multiverse, like maybe there's a different multiverse album with the same songs but
Well, it's-
reimagined.
it's funny what you're hitting on is one of the narratives that we've been speaking about, which is that the idea that while the 9-year period where John was having his boring life, it's actually because there's another version of the soul that needed to pull from multiple souls because of what they were going through,
Yeah,
and that could be the story. But
that's cool.
we'll see.
You can take it
We'll
any
see.
which direction you want.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it is, and what's cool is being able to share the story with people. It makes the music just hit differently for you.
Absolutely.
You get to connect with it in a different way.
Yeah.
And that's been a nice revelation for me, because I don't know. I think I've experienced that with some records. I wouldn't know what to pull from offhand, but it just feels good to create that, especially when I don't know. I mean, I'm sure I've had writer's block sometimes for years. I don't know if it's hit you as well, but I think being able to write about a fictional story that you've created, as opposed to trying to gut yourself and pull from your own life, has been very freeing, because you don't have to worry about being contrived with what you're saying.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter.
It's all
You're
a
just
story.
it's all a story that
Yeah.
you're making. It can go anyway. It's not like you're being untrue to what you really feel.
I like that.
Which is something that has been tough if you're trying to write about your own experiences, and you're not being, it doesn't want to just pour out of you.
The lyrics are like, I went to Home Depot.
Seriously.
They didn't have the tile I wanted.
What am I gonna write about today?
Yeah, right?
I'm like, oh, the epoxy. So much epoxy.
Yeah, no, it can get difficult to constantly create. Like I find when I'm traveling is when I get like all these great ideas.
Oh yeah.
Like even on a bus, like it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be far. Like I just have to be out of my natural element and
Mhm.
traveling, and that's when I usually, get an idea for a song. Like I just pull up my voice memos and record a little.
I want
idea.
to hear people's voice memos, man.
I have so many.
I have so many
That's
as
where
well.
Islands came from.
Ah, I love
the
it.
song Islands from mine. Yeah, that was a voice memo coming home from practice at your house.
It's really cool.
Yeah, just right off the dome. But let me ask you. I'm gonna do a couple quick fire questions.
Quick fire.
Quick fire. Well, easy stuff. Like, what are you listening to now? What's your favorite music? Do you have a favorite band that like you want people to know about?
A favorite band that I want people to know about. Well, in the last 2 days, I Hot Water Music just came through here, so I listened to some old Hot Water Music, and I listened to old Cursive in the last 2 days.
Old
Yeah,
Cursive's
I mean,
good.
Burst in Bloom is probably in my top 3 of best EPs a band ever put out. Like
Yeah.
first coming out the gate with Burst in Bloom,
Yeah.
it's like, oh my god,
How'd you do that?
how'd you do that? Yeah. As far as new stuff, I'm super boring. I'm not listening to anything good new. What I could tell you to do is listen to check Mike Castani out. Check out what
Castani?
Mike Castani. Yeah, he produced the Mr. Marsh stuff and the stuff that he's doing on the side right now. Not even like he did. I say on the side, but like I think Baba Sonia is his quote unquote main band.
Okay.
But he's been doing stuff under his name for the last couple of months now that he's been putting out, and he's so prolific with it. It's just he's really
Flies.
yeah, it's flying for him right now. So I would say definitely check him out. Check out American Trappist keeps putting stuff out, and Joe's really good from the River City Extension days. Check out Earth Telephone.
I haven't seen them yet.
They're really
I
good.
want to see them.
It's just like it's just
Fun.
it feels really good. It's
Yeah.
rock music. Check out
Yeah.
check out Yawn Mower. Check out Shut Up. I feel like I'm just
Fun stuff.
I'm just hyping up the local stuff right now. But I mean
But it's
that's
all
that's
good
what
stuff.
and that's what I listen to if I'm not
Yeah.
listening to old stuff. I feel
Right.
like if there's anything new, it's the locals are what I'm listening to.
Okay. What's your favorite music venue to go to see a show, or and to play
So
that you've ever played?
Rockwood 1 in New York City. Rockwood Music Hall.
Okay.
The original venue. It is super intimate, super small. It sounds beautiful in there. They typically only have like low-key acts playing, but everybody is super just respectful, quiet, and it's 2 brick walls, and the player sits inside of those, not
Doesn't
inside,
sound
but
like
they,
that would work.
but it sounds
But it
beautiful.
does, right?
sounds
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah, it sounds really, really good in there. Favorite venue to play? I don't know.
Anywhere that you've been.
Favorite anywhere that I've been, it's a great place to play.
You felt like, wow, this is magical, or you're like, I'll never forget this venue.
I mean, a show that I'll never forget. We did Bonnaroo in 2011, and that was like
Crazy.
walking out and playing to
Yeah.
thousands of people was incredible.
Yeah.
Like, and that was the best show that I ever played for sure. I don't know, I guess I keep thinking about like venues around here, like local venues.
Yeah.
I love the Wonder Bar. I love the Saint. Those are probably my 2 favorite venues.
To play.
Just around Asbury Park that I played or have played.
I agree. I think the sound there is good.
Sound
Like-
at the Saint is fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And the Wonder Bar.
and the Wonder Bar as well. Yeah, the Wonder Bar can get pretty loud for sure.
Yeah. Can get loud.
Not in a bad way. I'm just
No.
saying, like, it
Yeah. You can crank it.
hits in there. Yeah.
You're on a desert island.
Mhm.
One album you can bring with
Oh my god.
you.
One record.
One. That's it.
One record.
Just on repeat. Something you could listen to over and over.
I
and
mean, if you put
over.
any record on repeat, you're eventually going to go crazy.
Wow.
My gut said Jeff Buckley's Grace,
Wow.
but I know I'd be sick of that in a couple hours. Like I've heard it so many times in my life,
Yeah.
and I honestly I haven't given it a spin in a couple years now. But when I was 20 20, 21, 22, like that record hit me so hard that it just like it changed the game for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm on a desert island.
You're on a desert island.
Probably put on like a Toots and the Maytals record, like just try and like stay sane and just be real chill.
This will get me through.
This will get me through. It's like, you know, can I turn the volume on low, and just like, be like, all right, yeah, everything's fine.
Yeah.
I'm not stuck here. I'm not stuck here. I'm on vacation. Yeah.
Yes, I'm choosing to be here. Best real estate book.
Best real estate book.
I know you've read so many, but the one that really made a difference for you.
The one that really made a difference. I mean, Rich Dad Poor Dad flipped my perspective. So I would say that one is probably still the number one. But
it's up there.
the one I'm reading right now, Michael Blanc's Financial Freedom with Real Estate Investing,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm loving it because of how accessible he makes everything. He really boils everything down very, very succinctly into actionable steps of what you need to do. And it's funny because, I mean, sometimes like step 2 to step 3, step 2 will be like, make an online presence. Step 3, it's like, but it's like, you know, a full brand, full persona, full podcast, get followers. And it's like, okay, that's not easy. But he's like, but he's boiling it down. Like, here's the step that you need to do, you know, but he does he makes the deals, you know, fairly easy to understand, which is great.
Cool. Do you use the Bigger Pockets online, like, deal analyzer?
I do use their calculator, but I also have
Your own way.
Yeah, I do. But, you know, when I get serious about a deal, I'll run it through their grinder just to kind of fact check, you know, my own math. Because a lot of my initial math is just napkin math. Where I'm even seeing, like, does this even make sense?
Right, to even take it to the
for me
next
to,
level.
yeah. And that's, you know, my napkin math I do in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I do that in 5 minutes, like, oh, does this property even make sense to invest or you know, investigate? And if so, okay, cool, let's run it through that property calculator. And I picked up an app recently.
There's an app for that.
There is an app for that, and it's called Investment Property Calculator.
Wow.
Imagine that. Yeah.
They didn't get too creative on the name there.
No.
It's very to the point.
They didn't, but it's
But
great
that works.
because in so many steps, it's just, you know, page number 1 is, you know, your price, your estimated repairs, legal costs, other costs, and then page number 2 is what's your income, your expenses, property taxes. Page number 3 is just the summary. Here's the
That's
loan you're going to
awesome.
need. Here's the cash you're going to need. Here's your monthly
That's so
income,
great.
your cap rate, and then your ROI,
Love
your
it.
cash on cash. Yeah,
I'm gonna get that.
it's free.
And it's free.
And it's
Even
free.
better.
Yeah,
Well, thank you so much
absolutely.
for being our first guest.
Thank you for having
Thanks
me.
for rolling with our very loose format.
No, I'm all about it. I hope you can edit out anything you don't need.
No, it's all good. You gave everybody a lot of good tips for a lot of different arenas, whether they're looking to buy or invest or whatever. And May 11th, we are going to be at the Atlantic Highlands office at 76 First Avenue from 11 to 2. We're going to be talking about first-time home investing, specifically for people who may already own a home. You could be whatever age you're at and you're thinking about investing in real estate. We're going to be giving some first-time tips, and hopefully Nick will be able to join us.
I'm gonna be there.
He's going to be there, guys.
I'm gonna be there.
And you hear how much he's done in his own investing world, so come pick his brain. And we're going to go get drinks afterwards at Carton.
Awesome.
How's that sound?
Sounds great.
So
their
come join us.
boat's a good beer.
Yes, it is. May 11th is a Saturday from 11 to 2.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Thank you again for having me.